Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is a KMET Sports Show reunion and a Manely Broncos podcast show right here on the crossover right here on the MHRT network. How's everybody doing? We are going to talk about a lot of different things. Obviously, the main focus is going to be around the quarterback. We do have a Super Bowl coming. On Sunday, so we'll talk about that. Obviously, a lot of people in the room, so we'll hand out some introductions. We'll start first with the gentlemen that are always in the Manely Broncos podcast, that being Brandon Miller over there at Brandon Miller PO, and Matty Mulls of the rooting for the finally, it took them about 2,000 decades, but the Oklahoma City Thunder over there with the Topic Thunder podcast at Matty Mulls Pod. How you doing, Matty? We'll start with you first.
I'm good. There's a lot to cheer about in Thunder Nation. I hate the fact that we're tied with the Nuggets right now. The first seed was fun while it lasted. It's a freaking bloodbath out west. 4 teams, all just neck and neck. And if you sneeze, you're gonna wake up and notice yourself in like 5th or 6th seed. So it's pretty scary hours out there. And then the trade deadline's tomorrow. So we'll see if Sam Presti can do a little something, little Salt Bay with all those picks that we've got compiled. So should be a good time.
And Brandon Miller over there in the middle. How you doing, buddy? You doing good?
Yeah, I'm the one Brandon in this chat that or in this show that refuses to root for the Chiefs. So,
well, we will talk about why.
I guess that means I'm the best one here.
Yeah, we will talk about why Mr. Stoll down there in the bottom corner is going to be choosing to root for the Chiefs.
I'm good. I just before we dive into it.
Yeah.
If you are in any way, shape, or form a Broncos fan, okay, let me just read this to you because there is no possible scenario where you cannot root for the 49ers. Okay. The the similarities between the 98 Super Bowl Broncos team and this 2023 49ers. Obviously, the Shanahans. Brian Griese, I didn't even know this, is their quarterback's coach. Obviously, he was on our roster as a quarterback at that time. Anthony Lynn is the running backs coach, who was our running back at the time. And then Christian McCaffrey, obviously the son of Ed McCaffrey. Come on. They're basically the San Francisco Broncos. So, motion to vote Brandon out right now.
All the homies hate Joe Ellis, right? All the homies hate Joe Ellis.
Oh my God, man! Don't even.
So,
welcome.
In terms of our other 2 guests that are right here in the show, we have Brandon Stoll, who, as you could clearly tell in his name caption, he is clearly saying "Go Chiefs." He's been on the Manely Broncos podcast before, and of course, in the top right is Anthony Rodriguez. He is the executive producer over there at KOA. He's also been on the Manely Broncos podcast before. However, what people don't know is Brandon Stoll and Anthony Rodriguez and I go way back to the Metro State days, which is probably why you guys are probably wondering why I'm wearing the Metro State gear. Well, that explains it. So we used to do a show. We used to do a show down there on and over, I should say, at the Met Media called the KMET Sports Show. And actually, Brandon and I did 2 shows, right? Because we did the Stampede, right? We did the Stampede, and then we did the KMET Sports Show. But Anthony, of course, was the reason why we are a part of the MyMet Media, because he was the one that invited us to join MyMet Media, and the rest is history.
Yeah, the head honcho, the one responsible for all the greatness, all the success, and also with also not Go Chiefs in my damn title. I mean, for Pete's sake, get it together, Stoll. Lord have mercy. God help you. There's no reason on God's green earth that as a Broncos fan, you even think about having that in your title and then say it out loud and who are you?
I
What is
actually
it?
haven't said
Hold
it
on.
out
What's
loud.
on the
It's more
screen
of a
behind you right
troll.
now?
I've been waiting. I've been waiting for someone to say.
Get out. Get out.
What is it from Half Baked? They're like, boo this man. Boo.
Video. I'm gonna play the video.
Okay,
But thanks
why
for
don't
having
we?
me.
But see, this is exactly what I was going for, though. Just get something going. Have some fun.
He did text me the troll gif. So I mean, I was kind of prepared.
That's the first thing I sent when he asked me.
Yeah. Why don't we actually just, before we dive into the main topic of the day, why don't we, Brandon Stoll, why don't you have the floor and at least explain yourself right off the bat why you're rooting for the Chiefs?
Well, for me, it's more Mahomes. Kind of similar to Mahomes. I think within the next 10 years, I think we'll, for the most part, say he's the greatest of all time. I personally don't think he needs to get to 7. But I do think within the next 10 years, for the most part, people will say he is the greatest of all time, especially if he wins this year. Because if he wins this year, that's 3 in 5-6 years. So 5 years. With the talent that he has, the numbers that he has put up, I think people kind of forget Brady in his first 3 he wasn't the main reason why they won those. So for me, it's just I enjoy watching the greatest players ever. As a kid, I grew up hating guys like Brady, like Manning, like Big Ben. And as I've gotten older, especially with the NBA, I grew up hating Kobe. I grew up hating Tim Duncan and the Spurs. As I've gotten older, I've started to enjoy those players a lot more. So, look, I get it as a Broncos fan, as a Broncos fan base. It sucks when that guy is in your division. But at the same time, I'll ask you this. What have the Broncos done to actually make you hate the Chiefs since Mahomes has gotten there? Because they aren't giving me a reason to hate the Chiefs. The Bills, the Bengals, they all have legitimate reasons to hate the Chiefs. The Broncos haven't done anything to make me hate the Chiefs. I can think of one moment, and that's the left-handed pass game. And that's it. But other than them being in the Broncos division, the Broncos haven't, and that's just, that's the reality of it. They've stunk over the last 7 years since Mahomes has gotten here. So give me a reason. That's all I'm asking.
So we've been in quarterback purgatory. We've been in prison since Manning left, and all the Chiefs have done. All the Chiefs have done is slap the soap out of our hands. Okay, so and then they said pick it up.
Purgatory, though.
I get it. I get it that we have some wounds that we've inflicted on ourselves, but the Chiefs have plenty of reason. The Chiefs have plenty of reason to hate John Elway, right? And it was kind of like the same relationship. I have a lot of reasons to hate Kansas City, and it goes way before Mahomes.
Right. Well, that's what I mean, though, is yes, there are reasons before Mahomes, I guess. Growing up, I never really hated the Chiefs because the Chiefs were never really good enough. There's a couple of years in the Manning era, they were good, but they had Alex Smith, and you're just or Kyle Orton at one point. You never actually believed in them. They were like the bottom feeder of the division that you just didn't really care about. I hated the Chargers more than the Chiefs because of Phillip Rivers, right? And they were good. They had LT at time, in the early 2000s. They gave you reasons to hate them. Again, the Broncos haven't been good. They're not giving me a reason. When the Broncos and Chiefs play, the first thought I have is, well, how much are the Broncos going to lose by today? Not, oh, do the Broncos have a chance? Or the fact that I'm even thinking, hey, it'd be awesome if the Broncos had a chance against the Chiefs. I'm not going to just sit there and
is someone
moan and
forgetting
groan
a certain
about,
streak that ended this year? Because I feel like someone's forgetting a certain streak that finally ended
Sure.
this year.
Yeah, and
That's a
the
big
fact
deal.
that there was a streak, that's the problem.
I think you're forgetting what makes a great rivalry. The best rivalries are when you have two great teams, right?
Yes,
Especially in
right.
the playoffs. Those would make the best rivalries. Like we're seeing that with the Chiefs and the Bills, and hopefully like with the Chiefs and the Ravens.
The Bengals,
The other,
the Ravens.
the other key thing that makes great rivalries is when one team's really, really good and another team has not been very good. And that other team, mostly the fans, come to just despise the greatness. Now, I will say, though, there's
but that's
a very
a one-sided thing, though.
That's fine. That's fine. Remember
Like,
what
as
Frank
Nuggets-
Clark? Yeah, remember what Frank Clark said when obviously been for the Chiefs for a while. Comes here, he says, and he was not wrong. It wasn't much of a rivalry because it was one-sided, but that doesn't take away from the passion of the fans that see it as a rivalry. It still can be. It's more about hatred of the team, which is really funny, by the way, because you almost word for word said exactly what I described when it comes to Mahomes and the Chiefs, and that is in my age. I have come to want to made an actual effort to appreciate greatness. And you actually mentioned I did it. Same thing. Same guys. With Kobe, I did it too late in his career. With Tom, I did it too. I did it with a couple years left of his greatness, so I was still able to appreciate him. But Pat Mahomes is one of my favorite athletes ever to watch. He is electric. He is one of the best quarterbacks. I agree with you, by the way, because rings is always very important. But people forget MJ is considered the best. Bill Russell won 11. No one talks about Bill Russell in the conversation. He's one of the greats, like one of the greats. He's not near MJ. He's not near Kobe. He's not near LeBron. So I'm with you. Mahomes, eye test, probably already the greatest. He'll probably win. I mean, he's probably going to win 3, and then we're talking maybe 4 or 5. And yeah, I think he's going to pass Tom. People talked about Aaron Rodgers with 1 ring. Like just what you see visually, he looked like he could be the best quarterback. Yeah, the eye test. He's going to wind up being the best. But there's a difference between appreciating greatness and then actively rooting for that team to do well. There's a difference. I love watching Mahomes play. I love watching what he does. I love watching his craft. He's so much fun to watch. And by the way, Broncos country, if you hate Mahomes, guess what? Don't torture yourself. He's not going anywhere. Appreciate the greatness because he's going to be here for 10 plus more years. Enjoy it while he's there. Trust me, you will regret not enjoying what his career is going to wind up becoming. He's probably the best quarterback, maybe the best player ever in the NFL. But Brandon, there's a key difference between rooting for someone's greatness and appreciating someone's greatness and actively rooting for the team he's playing on. You can say, Mahomes, have a great day, be fun to watch, have an electric performance that we all enjoy, but go Niners. Like, we want them to lose. Like, all that awesome performance in a losing effort is something you can root for. You don't have to root for the player's greatness and the team to succeed.
I think other than money reasons, I don't really care. Look, all of this, go Chiefs, the picture back there, it is a troll because I knew you guys would have a reaction to it.
You don't say. Brandon Stoll trolling us.
I'm not, look, for me, it's more of a, I guess, like a high schooler rebelling against their parents. It's just over the last 7-8 years, I've gotten to the point where no matter what the Broncos do, I feel like they are going to fail because to me, the franchise just isn't. They're not going in the right. They're not doing what they need to become a relevant franchise again. To me, they just continuously shoot themselves in the foot, and they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting it to have a different result, and trying to chase the Super Bowl 50 format of how they won is never going to win again. Like that, especially in the era that we are in and where we are going with the NFL, those type of teams where you have probably the worst quarterback in the league, bottom 5, the way Manning was playing that year, and still winning a Super Bowl because your defense does it. I don't think if it does happen again, it's going to be once over the next 20, 30 years. Like, to me, those days are over. Even with Seattle and the Legion of Boom, Russ was playing well, right? Like, they were a middle of the pack off. They could run the ball. Like, they were still a decent to good offense. But the days of winning with an average at best quarterback and below average is what they've been trying to do, and building up this great defense, it's not going to happen. And so the sooner they get off that, the better. But and we'll obviously get to it here with the quarterback talk, but that's where it starts. Again, what they've shown me over the last 8 years, I don't trust them to make the right decisions. And so it has been more of a frustration, especially when you have had so many opportunities to go get a guy. And it's not hindsight 2020. It's not. I mean, we've all been. Well, it's just when there are, and look, the Josh Allen draft.
Go ahead.
You've had guys where like John Elway didn't even go to Josh's pro day. Like they didn't even look into him when they know they need a quarterback. Like they didn't even look into any of those quarterbacks. And so that's the frustration that where my frustration is coming from, is they haven't even tried to go a different route or try to do something. All they're trying to do is take these shortcuts, and I'm over it. So until they decide to finally go a completely different direction, by the way, the direction that every single successful franchise has, other than the teams that have gotten Brady, Manning, or Stafford over the last decade, every other team that has had success, whether they're winning a Super Bowl or getting there, they've done it the right way. And I'm waiting for the Broncos to, instead of trying to take shortcuts, just do it the right way. It doesn't take 5 to 7 years anymore. You can win within 4 by drafting a guy in the first round.
You better with a rookie contract. You better.
Right,
otherwise, you're hamstrung.
That's the trend, right?
Yeah.
That's the trend. I mean, the Eagles have done it twice, by the way. I mean, obviously, once didn't finish that year, but they've done it twice. The Rams did it with Goff. They didn't win, but again, they're having this immediate success. I don't understand the thought process that they've had over the last 8 years, especially when it hasn't worked over and over and over again. It's driving me nuts.
Before we go into our quarterback discussion, Brandon Miller, what were you going to say?
Well, I just, first of all, before I get into this, and other Brandon, I appreciate you, but I have no choice.
Move this man!
So here's the thing with me, with like, and I have different reasons why I hate the Chiefs as an organization that are more like I was kind of born into the hatred. It's a long story.
Molded by it.
It's part of it is yes, that the other part of it is our fan base is incredibly passionate. Like Broncos country is just like die hard for this team, but having to watch the organization spin in circles and knowing that we have to get past, like the bar is so much higher for us because they're in our division and we have to play them twice a year. It's always about like, okay, well now we have to get past them. I appreciate greatness as much as the next person. I think watching Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous, ridiculously entertaining. I think it's ridiculous what he does. Why can't it be for any other organization? Because him being that good makes it so much harder for us to get to a point where I feel like the team actually matters. And that's partly why I can't ever bring myself to root for them. And even though I enjoy watching him, I just always look at it. I'm like, that's the bar. And if the bar is the most talented quarterback in the NFL, the bar is almost impossible to get over. But I don't disagree with what you were saying with like that they were going about it the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But and yes, that's technically happened over the course of 8 years. But you know, the organization has changed since then. Like John Elway is gone. The dysfunctional whatever, I'm sorry, but that trust, that was ownership, that was a horrible idea for however long that went on. That's gone. Joe Ellis, who refuses to let us hire Kyle Shanahan, is gone. Like, I feel like some sense of, I don't know if I'd say light at the end of the tunnel, but I do think things are looking a little bit up.
Yeah.
I will say, as much as like, yes, they're in the Super Bowl now, Patrick Mahomes this year wasn't amazing. He wasn't bad. He was still very, very good, but this was definitely a bit of a down year. And ironically, it was kind of carried, like they have a really good defense that made up for that. Yeah. And yes, the whole Josh Allen thing we can talk about, whatever. you know,
But
revisionist history. But that's kind of where I'm coming from with like, I
Right.
appreciate the greatness, but it's just, if he was on any other team in any other division, I would just literally be savoring it. But it makes it so much harder for the team that I actually care about to get past the hump. And add on the top that I've hated that organization.
It does, but don't torture
For my
yourself.
entire
I mean,
life.
he's so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Find
I'm
a way
not
to
saying I'm not saying I'm torturing myself. It's fun to watch, but I'm looking at it thinking we have to play this twice a year and we have to get over that hump. And I don't know how we're going to do it. And
get a
we're
pretty
gonna
good
be-
eye, get a pretty good
we're
eye
gonna
test
be
right there at the
in-
standard. I mean, you get to
That's
see
the
that
question,
standard
though.
that you need to reach often.
That's the question I
Yeah,
want to
but
ask. Though,
just
is
good luck.
You mentioned that bar. That bar is hard to get past with how the Broncos have been trying to win, right?
It is. But even if they're
But-
going the right way, the bar is disgustingly
Sure.
high.
But Patrick
That just makes
Mahomes
me
also cost $50 million. So how
That's
are you
cheap compared to some
able?
people now.
Right, but okay, Cincinnati beat
ahead,
them
go
2
ahead.
years ago, right? Or is it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever? How did they do it? They had a quarterback on their rookie contract. They were able to pay for weapons. They were able to pay for a defense. And that's how you have to beat the Chiefs. It's not that you don't necessarily have to go get the second best quarterback in the league, right? You don't necessarily have to hope that Caleb Williams, trade up to number one and hope
Oh, I'm
that
not
Caleb
saying that.
Williams becomes the best quarterback in the league. You can't match Patrick Mahomes. What you can do though is get close enough to where then the money gap
I'm
is
paying the
where
money
you're kind of
Broncos.
tying them. So if you can draft a quarterback and he is, let's say, top 14, top 12 by year 3, or even year 2, that's the only way they're going to beat the Chiefs. Unless you do find the next guy that can actually compete with Mahomes one-on-one, which they're probably not going to do. The only other way is to get a quarterback on their rookie contract and build the rest of the team. And I'm not talking about just the defense. I'm talking about the offense, right? How San Fran is doing it. You would have to go the San Fran route. Now, I wouldn't obviously start a 7th-round quarterback, but the idea of it is grabbing a young quarterback that you believe in that has talent and then grabbing those weapons, paying for a Christian McCaffrey, paying for George Kittle, paying for Trent Williams. It's not just about paying for the defense. So
You're
that's
right. That's
what you
that,
have to do. And if they do that bar is a lot lower.
the bar is low, but none of those teams have to play them twice a year. Like that just
Gives you an advantage because you know them.
you can take advantage, but also that's if
Hard to beat a
you,
team that many times in a row, although they did it like 20,000 times in a row. If the Broncos do, let's say Houston was in that division. All right, let's swap Houston for Denver. With Stroud on his rookie contract and what they can do this offseason, paying for, let's say they go out and get Derrick Henry. Let's say they go out and pay for some defenders. Playing the Chiefs twice a year in the regular season, then seeing them in the playoffs, they would have a chance, is what I'm saying.
Matty?
Matty looks like he's going to explode. So I'll let him go.
Okay, so not all things are equal. You're bringing up a lot of good points. Teams that are built the right way. What do a lot of those teams have in common that have used rookie scale quarterbacks? They've been able to build their team the right way with elite talent in the draft. San Francisco went out and got guy after guy after guy on that defensive line. They got Bosa in the top, what was he, second pick, third pick? Like they did that. Will Anderson was the third pick. Stroud was the second pick. Like they're getting elite talent. The Broncos are bare there, right? So like it's not all the same, and our roster construction's just not going to be the same, right? So
They have Pat Surtain.
and we got to trade him out. We have to. Nothing against him. That's our best opportunity to be able to reset the clock and get that elite talent. But the Broncos haven't tanked. They haven't actually tanked. They haven't gone and said
we're going to go that route. They just haven't.
They
had the fifth. They had the 5th overall pick in 2018. So
And
they
used it on
have
Chubb.
tanked.
Yeah.
It's just they didn't go the route that you should when you're in that situation.
Can we? I'm sorry. We've had this conversation for 6 years because we keep going back to this Josh Allen thing. I'm sorry. No one was as much in love with Josh Allen until after the fact. Hindsight's 2020. Josh Allen, my most important trait that Josh Allen incredibly faltered at was accuracy. He was so inaccurate. He was this big beast, and everyone obviously wanted him, and the Broncos needed a quarterback. But man, I've gotten so lost on people going back to that 2018 draft. Bradley Chubb was a beast coming out of college. I know they needed a quarterback.
I remember where I was.
Josh Allen wasn't it at the time.
No, well, I mean, I remember wanting Josh Allen, but again, that's just me personally. Outside of Josh Allen, they've had opportunities. And
that one just annoys me because he was a unicorn.
Sure.
Quarterbacks do not fix accuracy in the way that he fixed it over the course of this career. And obviously,
I don't actually think he has necessarily fixed it.
No, well, fixed is relative. I'm saying relative to Josh Allen, what he was. Because I mean, his accuracy. He was a no draft for me. He was a no draft for me. Everyone goes, well, they should have drafted him. Well, yeah, you know what? Yeah. Hindsight is better than 2020. So
they've had other opportunities, though, is my point. And the easy one to do, and the first one that pops in my head is Josh. But there's Justin Fields. And I know people hate Justin Fields because whatever. He went to Chicago, and that's a bad situation. But again, Justin Fields at the second half of this past season showed flashes, and he has shown flashes over his time. Chicago is just horrible. I mean, they are. That might be the worst franchise in the league.
Not at all. Not at all.
They're not far. They're not far off.
No, they are far off. Chicago has I personally believe Chicago's got some good pieces. That Justin Fields is a guy. He is a jack.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
He is just a guy. But they've got pieces. He's shown improvement. But
they got DJ Moore. Congrats, guys.
The rest of
their offensive line is not good.
Justin Fields. I've heard everyone talk about how Justin Fields improved because the cellar, he was atrocious. So I hope he would have improved from where he was. But he's just a guy. Chicago's gonna fill the gap if they don't screw things up. By the way, my key here is that the Chicago Bears hold all of the cards for the Broncos. Mm-hmm. All of the cards for the Broncos. What they do specifically, I know it's kind of obvious because they're the number one pick. But what they do with it literally controls the Broncos' destiny at quarterback. You can ask me, by the way, if you want. But they're going to get the right guy. They're going to hopefully get a franchise quarterback at that position. It's probably going to be Caleb Williams. They'll definitely change things up and fix it up.
But the idea, and I'm not talking about going after a top 10 or trying to draft somebody and hoping that they turn into a top 5 quarterback in the league. What I'm saying though is because for me, I don't think Brock Purdy's a top 10 quarterback in the league. I don't think Jalen Hurts is a top 5. He's probably in the top 10, but I would say 8 through 10. My point is you can win and you can have a chance at beating the Chiefs without having a top 3, top 5 guy. You just got to do it the right way, and we'll get to the quarterbacks in this draft. But I don't think you necessarily need to trade into the top 3 to do it.
Well, let me just toss this in here real quick, and then Cam, you can go. I think there's 3 ways you can beat the Chiefs, and I think really only one of them is achievable. I don't want to say quickly, but you can flip a light switch. You have an elite quarterback. You have a good quarterback and an elite team around him. Honestly, maybe there's only 2. With the way that this team is constructed right now, you pretty much have to get the elite quarterback, because if you want to get the roster to the point that San Francisco has it at, it's going to take years. Or I guess the third option is you have an elite quarterback and you have, or an almost elite quarterback, and you have a great team around him, but it's not an elite team.
Where are you at with Stroud then? Because I'm curious, because Houston was bad a year ago. They were that was exactly.
Yeah.
But how good is Stroud though? Is Stroud a top 5 guy? Is Stroud a top 10 guy? Is Stroud a top 15 guy? Because my point is,
elite doesn't necessarily mean top 5. I just think he's an elite quarterback.
I mean, he was boundary top 5 by the I think
he's top 10 by easily.
Well, I mean, if you look at it with this season, I mean, he was a bona fide MVP candidate with how he was playing this year. I think it was just I think it's very objective to think that he's not in the top 5 yet because it was his first season. But it's also fair to necessarily think that, like, hey, he can still be a top 5 guy with possibly how he was playing. And so I think that for the Broncos, like, and Brandon Miller and I have had this conversation, a few times, but I think that what makes this fascinating, and we can pivot we can just go ahead and just pivot to the draft and draft or just quarterbacks in general with this. Because I think that there are a lot of avenues that the Broncos can go, and because of that, it opens up the possibilities, for them to find their franchise quarterback. But obviously, Anthony and I, and even Stoll and I think maybe have had this conversation before, is also. But it's like, I think the point, like, even over the last 8 years, this whole bridge quarterback discussion, that's great if you actually have that plan, that quarterback that is your guy, that's already on the roster. See, the Broncos and the problem that they've had in the last 8 years is they've had the Joe Flaccos of the world, they've had the Case Keenums of the world, but they've not had that backup plan, or not the backup plan, but they've not had the plan in place after them in order for that foundation stuff to be laid after that. And so I think that for the Broncos, there's a lot of ways that they can go about this in terms of the quarterback route. They can go the Jordan Love route or the Josh Allen route in terms of like what we mentioned earlier. Or they can go the CJ Stroud route. And I'm not saying the CJ Stroud route, like you ship everything off and you move everything, to get into the top 5 to draft, like the Drake Mays, the, possibly the Jaden Daniels, or, even the Caleb Williams. I'm just saying, like, you draft that quarterback, and if he is the dude, like that guy, you start him day one, and you ride your horse, and you build that offense around him. And I think that the way that the Broncos are currently constructed, and the way that they are certainly being led, is that their foundation is being in place by Sean. And I think that that's why the excitement for me is there. I don't know what that is going to transpire as. And that's why I feel like for this draft, I'm kind of looking at it in a lot of different angles, right? I'm looking at it in possibly my draft favorites, like the draft favorites in terms of the quarterback position and who are mine. But I'm also looking at it from, like, let's just, look at it from this comment that just chimed in with Michael Pratt, right? Say you draft Michael Pratt. I look at Michael Pratt necessarily as like a Jared Goff, right? Which, funny enough, Sean Payton compared the Denver Broncos of 2023 to the 2022 Detroit Lions. Well, let's just say Michael Pratt is like a Jared Goff. For pun intended purposes, you can make him the quarterback of the team, but just have elite weapons and elite everything around, your team, if you will, and just elite talent, so that he is literally distributing the football all across the yard to better players and better players that are on the field, right? So I think that, like, that's an ideal scenario, in essence, maybe how Sean wants to run. And I think the best way that he's had that is with a Drew Brees, which is that higher ceiling, higher IQ, and a player that can very easily distribute the football.
Well, if you're saying go the route of have a good quarterback and an elite team around him, I hate to break it to you, but this team is not close to having the elite team around him. That's where I was trying to get at, is you're either going to get really lucky in the draft, and yes, obviously talent evaluation goes into this, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's a crapshoot, or it's going to take 5+ years, or you get your elite quarterback that covers up due deficiencies. And Matty,
to your point,
to say something. Go ahead.
Well, it's just how long is Peyton going to sit around for that rebuild?
Well, that's my
for 5 years to build that up to like what the 49ers are now.
Yeah,
like that's not feasible. So what do you do to expedite that? You get the elite talent and you allow them to rise the talent around them instead of being a product of the system and being a point guard, right? Like, we don't have that kind of time with Peyton. Like, we've got to start winning within the next couple of years.
But that's the problem. Because now when you feel that pressure, now you're trying to take shortcuts, and
that's where we're at.
But see, and that's the frustrating part.
Trading up to get the quarterback you want as a shortcut? I don't think it is. I think a shortcut would be trying to sign Mac Jones.
That's not a shortcut. Here's the problem, though, and this is where I think I forget about, and I think a lot of people forget about, is that the Russell Wilson contract kind of interferes with going the route of young quarterback, cheap, and then spending money on the rest of the roster. Because you have a lot of dead money with Russell Wilson and with his contract. So that's the other problem, is that, to your guys' point, Brandon, like, it's not, you got to hit on your draft picks because you don't necessarily have all that cap space to go sign guys in free agency and really do what San Fran did. Because yeah, they hit on some of their picks, on a good amount of their picks, but they went out and got Christian McCaffrey, right? Like, they're able to hold on to a lot of their draft picks because they haven't had to spend a lot of money and they can re-sign them. So it's just, they're in a tough spot. And if Sean Payton came to Denver expecting to win right away, and he's trying to put that pressure on the ownership and on George Payton, then he wasn't the right guy, and then he needs to get out of there. But if he came to Denver because he saw this as a long-term place and a place that he could be patient with, then I don't think you necessarily have to think, oh, we have to win the next couple of years. You just got to build the team the right way. And if you build the team the right way, you will have a chance. Does that mean you're going to beat the Chiefs? Does that mean you're going to win a Super Bowl? No. But if you build it the right way, you can at least be in the conversation of being a legitimate Super Bowl contender, like the Bengals have been, like the Ravens have been, like Philly has been. Even though they haven't won it, they're in the conversation every year. And that's where you want to be. You don't want to be stuck in the middle where you're just like, well, you know, we're 6-5 or 5-6. Maybe we can sneak into the playoffs and then get blown out by the Bills.
So what's the direction?
We can't even get to the Chiefs.
Well,
So
I want to chime in on roster construction, because a couple of you guys have mentioned Houston a couple of times and what that roster looked like comparatively to suddenly the elevation when it comes to an elite quarterback. Peyton Manning is one of the best examples of elevating a pretty subpar roster in the last couple decades. But Houston's probably that next great example because of where that roster was and now where they've been elevated with Stroud. And that's where I want to come in terms of the Broncos roster construction. Rosters and the way that they work and the fluidity of rosters when it comes to teams that don't have their quarterback. The Broncos roster in the last 8 years is a good example of, it's seemingly like there's been a lot of plug-and-play pieces that maybe would fit a lot better if they had that quarterback, because a roster is going to look a whole lot better. The elevation of these guys is going to look a whole lot better when you've got that guy bringing them all up, or also very importantly, not just elevating, but hiding the flaws that rosters have when they have the right guy. Yeah. So I think the Broncos roster, there's a magnifying glass on so many different places because they haven't had that guy. Russell Wilson obviously had a much improved last year. He still was, slightly above average, but a much improved year than the year before. Mm-hmm. And the roster, I personally think that the roster was elevated. I think it looked a lot better. I think there were some pieces that they obviously filled with a lot of money spent. Some folks in the chat are mentioning McGlinchey and Powers. I think McGlinchey, he struggled in one facet of the game and was good in the others, and Powers had good moments. But overall, I think we saw the elevation of the roster because of how Russ played better. It always goes hand in hand. It went hand in hand in Houston. I mentioned Peyton Manning and his Colts teams for years, even for the Broncos for a little bit, but mostly the Colts teams. The roster will suddenly have just a massive upgrade when you find that guy. So I personally, and by the way, I am team Sean Payton. I believe in Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton's the right guy. I think he's one of the better offensive play callers. I think he's definitely going to be the guy that I want to have the keys when it comes to finding and choosing that right quarterback. But when he gets that quarterback, this roster is going to look a whole lot better. Everyone always likes to crap on him, obviously, in the last 8 years because of the issues they've had without having that quarterback. But I'm telling you, once you get that guy, circa Houston last year, everything either gets hidden properly or gets elevated properly. And that's something we can't ignore.
That's why the flip the switch example that I was mentioning, because your other option, if you want to not have to get the elite quarterback. You want to have the good quarterback. You got to have the elite roster, and that's going to take you longer.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why when people have said that, like, I mean, Sean Payton, like in terms of, and to, so what you mentioned earlier, it's like, I'm under the impression, look, I mean, I was hoping that the Russell Wilson Sean Payton thing was going to work, but I think that when he came in, he didn't come in here and be like, oh, I'm coming in here because of Russell Wilson. No, he came here because of the Denver Broncos and possibly the future of what he can do.
He talked about what was most important. He talked about ownership. He talked about general manager. He talked about that triangle.
Exactly. He didn't.
All respect to Russ, he did not really talk about Russ being a reason. He wanted this. He wanted the cohesion they had with Mickey in New Orleans. He wanted that cohesion with the ownership. He wanted to be in a place. And by the way, that messaging from Sean, I forget who mentioned earlier, that messaging from Sean about what was important tells me he is in it for the long run. Right. The Saints, Breeze was on the way out. Cap hell was prominent, and it's gotten even worse since he left. So it's not Sean. He is in this for the long run based on what he was looking for on a roster.
So and ironically enough, sorry, Cam. Ironically enough, a year ago he was at the Super Bowl Radio Row, and he was going on a lot of interviews. And the one thing that kind of stuck with me is they were talking about Mahomes, and that he regretted not trading up. He thought Mahomes could drop to them to New Orleans, and he said that they would have taken him. Now, again, who knows if that's actually true? But what stuck with me is he regretted not trading up and going to get his guy. And so him saying that, my hope is if he does have a guy in this draft, whoever that is, if there is somebody that, whether it's JJ, whether it's Bo Nix, whether it's Penix, I don't care who it is. If he loves that guy and he thinks that that guy can be special and that's his guy, then go up and get him.
So
I'm glad I'm real quick because I want to say I'm glad you mentioned those three guys by names because none of us are naive here. We know what's happening at the top of the draft. The Broncos got the shaft in the sense that those top three are borderline unreachable. It's probably going 1, 2, 3. So yes, those three guys, if they love a guy, two of those you should not take at 12. Okay. If JJ is the guy, you take him at 12. It's too high. It's too rich, but you do it because I wouldn't want to risk going back and go further.
Well, okay, Anthony, my question though, real quick, interesting. My question though is if it goes Caleb, May, Jaden,
which you probably will.
Caleb, Jaden, May, whichever way, that means that there are still teams between 4 and 12 or even 13 with the Raiders that do want a quarterback. So even though talent-wise, we may not think J.J. McCarthy is a top 10 pick or Michael Penix is a top 10 pick, you have to move up because if let's say Sean Payton loves J.J. McCarthy and he's like, look, I can't get the top 3 guys. I love this guy. But Atlanta's at 9. The Raiders are at 13. What if they like JJ too? So that's where it's like, you got to kind of be careful because even though as a fan and as just from the outside, we don't think those guys are top 10 guys. They're going to have to be because of where the other teams are. Just like the Chiefs, they moved up from 22 to 10. And at least me and a lot of people on Twitter made fun of the Chiefs for moving up that high to take Mahomes.
Yeah.
But they went out and got their guy because they believed in that guy. Andy Reid loved him. And so even though maybe they moved up higher than you would think, they made sure to go get him and make sure that they had their guy so that way no one else could move up in front of them or someone in front of them would take him. They didn't just stand pat and say, well, if he's there at 20, we'll take him. So that's my other thing is like, if you do like JJ and you think he could get there at 12, but Atlanta needs a quarterback or, the Raiders are right behind you. What if they trade up to 8 and they could snag JJ? So that's the other side of it is like, you kind of have it's now, if he loves Pratt or even Penix, you probably don't have to trade up. But I think JJ and maybe Bo Nix are the two that you might have to trade up just a little bit to make sure you get him.
You 100% don't have to trade up to get Penix. Penix is fallen. Penix's stock is fallen. I'm telling you, he's going to be a mid to late second at best. Bo Nix, Bo Nix, you can certainly get at 12, but that's way too rich for me. JJ is the interesting point. And yes, there are a lot of quarterback needy teams that outside of those top 3 make it interesting. But hey,
The
by the way,
Vikings.
Jim Harbaugh, if you love him so much, we'll take Herbert. You can go get him if you want to.
Right.
Just saying, putting that out
I
there.
mean,
He just
I don't know how much
settled
Tennessee
Herbert
loves
with
Will
Roman,
Levis.
so we'll see how that goes.
No, I know I'm just teasing. But
I mean,
Uh,
the Giants go off of Daniel
loving
Jones.
your guy, especially a quarterback, has a price. I'm with you in terms of getting your guy, but it's at a price and the premium of 12. You don't have to do it with Nix. You don't have to do it with Penix. JJ is intriguing, and if they absolutely love him, you consider. And also the free agent market. Maybe some of these quarterback needy teams between 3 and 12 also go the different route, because they also say, hey, between 3 and 12, it's too rich to get a Bo Nix, too rich to get a JJ.
Free agency is after, though, right?
No.
Or is it
No.
before? It is
Yeah,
before.
free agency is in March.
She's March.
Okay, NBA is after. Sorry.
We'll
NBA
have those questions.
We'll know.
Go ahead, Matty.
We'll know.
So, a couple things. The cap hell. We're gonna eat our lima beans first, right, Russ? We're gonna eat all of that dead cap next year. It just makes the most sense, right? And we'll figure out what we got to do. Some guys that we love may get moved, but like we got to be ready for that, right? Like buying a jersey is a bold thing to do in Broncos country right now.
Yeah.
Justin Fields, you just mentioned 1, 2, 3. Well, the Bears have another quarterback. They're not going to keep Justin and Caleb, so where does he go? Is 12 too rich for Fields? Perhaps. I don't know. I've heard his market value is a 2 and a 3.
Yes.
So what does that look like? Do we trade
Then you have
back?
to pay him.
Do we trade back? But here's something. Some combination of using 12 to get assets or whatever with the idea that we get at Fields. That doesn't exclude us from taking a Pratt or a Spencer Rattler or somebody like that later and just say, you know what, we've got 2. And so we want Fields to be the guy. It's a lower investment in the other guy. And if Fields doesn't work, then we get the system guy that maybe, needs a couple years to develop or whatever. That could be a route. It's been done. There's precedent for having a quarterback that you want to be your guy, and then you go get another one. Right, exactly. And they traded up to get RG3. They traded the farm essentially to go up and get him, and then still said, you know what, we want to take Kirk Cousins because like he fits what we would want to do if we don't go this route, right? So there is precedent there, and it wouldn't surprise me if Peyton said, you know what, I'm going to take 2 cracks at this here, and we're just going to let this thing, lack of a better way to say it, let it ride, and then we're going to move forward, especially knowing that we're taking our medicine with the dead cap with Russ this year, and that's going to allow us next year to maybe have the better aggregate or roster construction around whoever that guy is moving forward in 2025.
I like the idea, but the biggest issue with that concept, and I really am a fan of it, if they had the draft capital. They can't spend 2 picks on quarterbacks. I love the idea, and I love that specifically does not happen often when you have the lack of draft capital the Broncos have.
I think that for me, in terms of taking the 2 quarterbacks, I like the idea a lot. But like in terms of doubling down, I guess doubling down for me like means it's like back to back, right? Like that's kind of like what it would mean for me. Like, but I think in terms of doubling if the quarterback route, I'm fine. Like, let's just say they take JJ McCarthy, right? They take that swing with JJ McCarthy, right? And then say like in that latter rounds, like, like maybe round 4. I'm not saying he'll go round 4, but let's just, for sake of example, round 4 is when Michael Pratt is actually there. Right. And they go out and they take Michael Pratt. Right. And they go take Pratt and McCarthy. Right. I mean, I think that's at least a scenario. I'm not saying that's going to be the scenario, but I feel like one of the more, I guess, toxic scenarios would certainly be if you drafted JJ McCarthy and then you drafted Spencer Rattler, in the latter rounds, possibly when in terms of like personalities and the personalities that you'll have in the building. But there's no doubt with Sean Payton that it'll make everybody in that room better. And I think that it would be curious, like that's, I think, a different type of aggressive, right? We talk about the aggressiveness in terms of swinging and drafting the quarterback, and trading up for him, or even taking him like in just 12 and just like forgoing the rest of the draft. I like the aggressiveness in the sense of like, let's take the quarterback, let's still build around it. possibly. But well, it's almost like a recruiting class, right? In high school, when you take a quarterback in high school, you're almost building him around that high school recruiting class that you're coming in, right? Because that's like the whole point of success building, even in college, is the moment you bring a quarterback in, like if you're a top tier program, you bring in that quarterback. The goal is to have that high school recruiting class that you're bringing in be built around him, right? So I think that like that's in essence the point that needs to be done for the Broncos with whoever they take a quarterback, right? So I'd be really curious to see what their plan would be, but I don't mind that type of aggressiveness.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Justin Fields thing because it is interesting. The problem with the Justin Fields thing is you're going to have to pay him. So you could give him a year and make him earn it. But let's say he does play well, but he's not like top 10. Let's say he puts together,
which he will not be, but continue.
Right. So like that's the thing is like, let's say he's 12, right? Like just outside the top 10. He has some good weapons. He does some good things with his legs. Now you're in a weird spot because we just talked about, well, how do you beat the Chiefs? Young quarterback on cheap deal, get the talent around him. Well, now you're already back in we got to pay this guy, and he ain't going to be cheap. Daniel Jones, if he's just as good as Daniel Jones, and I think he'd be a little bit better than Daniel Jones, he's going to cost a lot. So that's the other problem. That's why I was for Justin, but then when you really think about it, because I do like Justin Fields. I think he can be a really good quarterback if you get the right weapons around him. It's just, to me, for the Broncos, it doesn't make sense. For the Falcons, it makes a whole ton of sense, right? For a team even like Washington, it makes sense. Well, even though they have the third pick, so it doesn't really matter. But my point is, like, those type of teams, it does make sense. But for Denver, they're already in a bad cap situation. So as much as I like Fields, it doesn't make sense for Denver.
It makes sense for other teams to fill that gap with the best possible answer you can. But guys, the Bears did the Broncos due diligence for them. They found out, and they're finding out that Justin Fields is not a guy that's going to win you the big one. The Chicago Bears with Justin Fields, their absolute ceiling is 8, 9, maybe in the best year, 10 wins. You're in the wild card. Maybe you make it to the divisional round and you're out. What's the goal here? We talked about early on. What's the goal here? You're competing with the best of the best to be elite. The Chicago Bears did that research for the Broncos in front of them and everyone else in the league and said, Justin Fields is good, not great, can't win you the big one. Now you're talking about moving into a franchise quarterback in a Caleb Williams that can maybe take you to that upper echelon, knowing that Justin Fields ain't that guy. So there's no reason whatsoever, and I guarantee you Justin Fields will not be in Denver because he's the questions that you have before a draft have been answered at another team at the expense of the Chicago Bears. The Denver Broncos don't have to take that risk. They've seen what they need to see, as has everyone else in the league. But to your point, if there's teams like the Atlanta Falcons that can't get in those top 3, then yeah, it makes sense for them because you have that great roster around. You might as well fill that gap with the best possible answer you can get. Doesn't make it the right one long term. It's just, hey, let's see what the ceiling is with that team. And then the Atlanta Falcons say maybe in a couple years when it comes to 50 or another contract for Justin Fields, they say, okay, we've seen the peak with this roster. Now we can take that next step. Maybe then they are in the position to draft their true franchise quarterback, or maybe then there's a much better free agent quarterback. Because like you said, it makes sense for those teams. It makes zero sense. Zero sense for the Denver Broncos to go in on Justin Fields.
So there's 2 levels. There's 2 levels. There's the top tier level where that quarterback, like you said, Anthony, a little bit earlier, there's the top tier where those guys come in, change your franchise immediately. They elevate the lesser talent that you had the year before. There's also the next tier where they're good quarterbacks, but they're not going to elevate the average receivers around them or the average running back around them. You're going to need the special talent around them to get to where you want. Like the Niners with Purdy, who I think is in that second tier where he can be a really good quarterback with the elite weapons around him. But if you put him on the Chiefs instead of Mahomes, they don't sniff the playoffs because he's those type of quarterbacks that need the talent around them.
Instead of we trust then next year? Because
yes, that's
if there is a plan behind him, I would not be opposed, but there has to be a logical Bo Nix, JJ, I've lost a lot on Penix, but if that is one of those guys behind him, I am not as opposed to the idea of Stim being the starter going into the season. But there has to be, I know you guys, I forget who had mentioned earlier, in terms of there having to be overall that plan, that succession plan. Yes, it's a bridge, but a bridge to where? And if we have the answer of the to where, in terms of quarterback specifically, then I'm not opposed.
What if their plan? What if their plan is I don't like anyone in this class? I'm going to use all my picks to fill the cupboard, and then we're having a redshirt.
I'm
going to eat the whole Russ contract.
I am so glad you asked that question because and this is where I fight with most of the Broncos fans on the quarterback conversation. I want the plan at quarterback to be in place. You start building that plan because even with a poor roster, I know it's tougher to evaluate your franchise quarterback if you are understanding that it's going to be a tough year or two. But get that guy in the building. Find a guy that you can.
Right, but that's why I put in the what if they hate everyone? What if they don't like anyone in this class? That's why I put that.
Because
there are.
This is such an insane.
Right.
The top
you know
three,
what? I'm gonna sidebar because it's not. It's as crazy as it's not out. The Chicago Bears.
Hypothetically, though, let's just say it's
hypothetically,
out.
most likely, 90% chance the top three are out.
Right. So then, what if Sean hates Penix and JJ and he doesn't love anybody?
Yeah. If Sean loves a guy, I'm in. But if Sean loves Jaden Daniels and we can't get Jaden Daniels, like it's just literally not possible.
I think the most likely scenario is that they're doing the homework on the guys past three. Like I think that they say, oh, if there's a chance to win those top three. This quarterback class is so damn deep. It's one of the deepest we've seen in so long. No, I'm not saying that. But the chance that they don't like one of those next couple guys, at least one of them, enough to take that flyer, and I'm not talking first round. I'm talking if they don't love them, they're clearly not taking them at 12. You're then talking about a Drew Lock situation where if one of those guys falls in that second round, you take a flyer that says
a Drew Lock situation again.
I'm not saying we can't base it just on Drew Lock. By the way, he's free.
I know that was.
But my point is if you don't love a guy, you're not taking him first round, obviously, right?
If you don't love a guy, I don't want him to be the plan.
If you can like a guy, I think they liked Drew Lock. I'm okay with that being an option in terms of being in the building. It's an option of being in the building. If you don't love a guy, you're not going first round with them. But if a guy falls to a position, you said, you know what, at 12, I didn't want to put that premium pick there, but I like a guy enough. Let's say it's Bo Nix. He's not going to fall. I don't think he's going to fall that far, but let's say he does. You like him. You don't love him. You weren't going to take him in the first round, but then you talk second round. You say, I like him enough to give him a flyer at that pick, not in the first round, but in that pick. And then you say, you know what? If Bo Nix, let's say midseason, they go to Bo Nix and they see enough in like 7-8 games. They say, you know what? Screw it. Let's roll. We liked him. Now we're starting to love him. And then you go. And if not, then you're in a position next year in a not as good of a quarterback class, but then you're in a position next year to maybe be in that spot again with better draft capital. You're then past the Russell Wilson contract to then make that move at a guy you love when you previously went with a guy that you like. By the way, I really want to throw this out because there is a possibility that they can get in the top three. It's extremely unlikely, but the Chicago Bears hold all the cards. I know obviously that's obvious, but it's very important in this specific way. If the Bears, God help them, and God help Bears fans if they really go with this, but if they buy in and go with Justin Fields, they need to do specifically one thing with that pick, and it cannot be with anyone outside the top three. If anyone outside of the top three goes into the top three, it's to probably get a quarterback, and then we're still looking at 1, 2, 3 QB. They need to convince the Commanders or the Patriots that they are in on Caleb Williams and say, we want him, but trade us the farm and we'll give you the pick. And then they don't go quarterback and then they go with maybe Marvin Harrison. Because if it's not 1, 2, 3 quarterback, it is open freaking season to get one of those three guys. But there's so much Yes, because the Chargers are at 5 and we know about in-division trades. If somehow so much has to happen. The Bears have to not take Caleb. They have to trade specifically with the Commanders or the Patriots to get one of those two, because you need need one of those top three to not be quarterback, obviously. And then we're talking about open season on 4 or 5. And then the last piece of the puzzle, the third of the three guys that falls has to be the guy the Broncos love. There's too much there. I just want to throw it out there because it's possible. It's possible.
Well,
but also with Caleb Williams.
You know what else happens? Every year there's 50 guys that go round 1, right? You never know.
And but also Caleb Williams, by the way, if Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams is a DC guy, the last little piece of this, Caleb Williams is a DC guy, it would be in his best interest his best interest to publicly say, I don't want to go to Chicago, because then if he wants to go to the Commanders, then suddenly knowing that the Bears are going to have to trade that pick because you're not going to not take, I don't think that if they love Caleb but don't like the other two quarterbacks, you're not going to take a quarterback. He would publicly say, I know they're like, Colin Cowherd said maybe that he didn't really want to, and then they backpedaled. But if you're Caleb Williams, want to go to Washington, you come out right now and say, I don't want to go to the Bears, because then the Bears lose all of their leverage, and then the Commanders can move up to 1 and bing, bam, boom.
I'm sorry, but if he wants to go to Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know how much I like him.
Play for a hometown team. Sometimes it doesn't matter what the situation is.
Well, he likes Cliff too. I mean, they were together a year ago, so it works in Washington.
God bless him.
I'm talking shit about the Commanders. Just let me.
Yeah.
Well, and Cliff's
well, that's specific.
Great.
Yeah. So the big thing is Chicago kept I'm blank Eberflus and their GM, which is weird because they're going to start the season on the hot seat. So what you don't want is to draft Caleb, then it doesn't end up, going towards the playoffs. He's not going to just come in and do what Shroud did. So maybe
he's pretty damn good. He might.
He might. But let's say he doesn't. Now you're at 5 or 6 wins, and then you fire Eberflus because you're saying, well, it's your fault. Yeah. And then Caleb is in this.
But then you have coaches lining up. You want to come and coach this roster with Caleb Williams as your quarterback? You give it.
You're also hurting Caleb though. You're hurting his development because now he's having to relearn another offense, and it turns into a disaster. Now I think we all think that Caleb is good enough to kind of get past all of that, but at the same time, you're hurting yourself. What they should have done was cleaned house and said, we're going to completely, if Eberflus is already going to be starting on the hot seat, just get rid of him now. What are you doing? No. So
is he going to be in the hot seat? Maybe they like him.
It's all hypothetical.
I'm not big on Eberflus, but I do say there's something to be said about at least to have a portion of stability when you're bringing in your next franchise quarterback. Because if it doesn't work out, and by the way, they obviously got rid of Getsy, and so it's a matter of someone remind me the OC they brought in obviously is a guy. It's a
Waldron.
It's a guy that's going to fit. It can also. I mean, I know Washington got Cliff, but it's another chance for Caleb to fit in Washington. But they clean up in spots that were, I think, necessary on the offensive side of the ball. But I think you don't want to go full clean slate when you're also bringing in your franchise quarterback. You want to see what they've had with Eberflus and that offense can do what they need to do with Caleb. And the worst case scenario, Eberflus is out, and then coaches are lining up to coach Caleb. So I don't hate it. I don't like Eberflus. I think he'll be out too, but I don't hate it.
Slightly unrelated. Did you guys see the interview that I don't remember who did it, but someone interviewed Jackson Smith and Jigba and asked him what it was like playing with Shane Waldron, and he basically just said, "Good luck." Did you guys see that?
No.
Yikes.
Oh,
all right. So
anyway,
let's move forward with like enough hypotheticals, enough of the let's play the game of who will be Denver's next quarterback, and obviously
start the year or just the next franchise guy.
Let's just go with who is their next. Let's go with the quarterback
starting week 1.
Let's go with the quarterback that they feel that Sean Payton views this upcoming in terms of the franchise guy.
Who's Sean's guy?
Yeah, who is Sean's guy
in the draft?
Who is Sean's guy? And you can interpret that however. I mean, and if I'm saying who is Sean's guy, I would interpret it as who's his franchise guy.
I don't know if I like that wording, because what if none of them are his franchise guy? Like, he doesn't actually believe in them.
But if you're
throwing a dart and you're like, he's going to go this direction.
How about because I think the most fun way would be is who's the week 1 starter and what's the quarterback room look like?
Okay.
That's fine. We can do that. Let's do that.
Okay. That's fair.
Because I think that could tell you a sense of the direction. It could tell you a sense of where they're going. It could tell you what they're doing in quarterback next year. I think who the week 1 starter is and then what the quarterback is room behind that guy. Because I think a lot of options could be veteran QB, drafted quarterback, depending on who that is. I'm not going first.
Then Brandon go first.
Matty, go first. Matty, you go.
Okay. Starting week 1, it's going to be a battle between Stidham and Gardner Minshew. And it's one of either Pratt or Rattler as the quarterback drafted to add to the room. And Broncos country is going to light everything on fire nearby. So you're not going to be able to distinguish the Broncos fans from, say, the Buffalo Bills fans, just with like all the destruction that's going to happen around them. This is the reason why we're going to eat our medicine. The lima beans, like I said, we're going to eat those first, get them done. The 80 million in dead cap or whatever it's going to end up being. That's what it's got to be. Minshew is going to be affordable. I don't know that he's going to go back to Indianapolis. They're going to get Anthony Richardson back. The keys are fully handed off to him. There's no growth potential for Minshew there. That wasn't a short joke, but that's just that for him, right? He's going to have an opportunity to go be the next guy who could maybe fit into the Peyton system. And oh, by the way, Gardner Minshew is the same age that Drew Brees was when he went to New Orleans to go play for Sean Payton. So that's a fun little tidbit. Stidham's already on the roster. He's under contract. It's reasonable. There's no reason to really boot him. And then we bring in a guy at low risk in the 3rd round. I think we could get Pratt or Rattler, either one of those guys in the 3rd round.
So
and we'll maneuver the way we got to.
Shoot your shot on one of those two.
I mean, all the connections have certainly been to Pratt. I'm not going to put my head in the sand and pretend that there aren't a lot of tea leaves that are spelling Pratt. But I think that people are misreading it, and it says Pratt, but it really says Rattler. And so we're gonna see Spencer there. He's blown people away in interviews down at the Senior Bowl
MVP.
Senior Bowl MVP. I waxed poetic about it about a month and a half ago about just the transition moving from a Lincoln Riley system that's very college focused, college centric, not developmental to get you ready for the pros, to moving over to South Carolina. And then a lot of the play calls, a lot of the reads, a lot of the concepts are more the pro style. He's going to be ready. He stands in the pocket, takes a punch in the face, and delivers the ball on time, on target, across the middle of the field in a tough SEC, night in, night out against elite competition. Like all the things you want to see, the growth and development and maturity, it's there. And I think that Peyton's probably gonna all the things are gonna come out saying how enamored he is with Pratt, and that's only to get people off of the trail so he can take Rattler. So that's my shot. That's my okay. You could say it's spicy, you could say it's vanilla, whatever, but that's how I see it.
All right, we'll go with you, Stoll.
I think they trade up and not a ton. I think a few picks, and they take JJ. I think that's
okay.
Yeah, because I think they would be afraid of somebody jumping them, and I think I personally don't love JJ, but I think he makes sense with Sean. And then as far as the rest of the room, I think obviously it'd be Stidham, and then I think they bring in someone, a veteran like Brissett or whoever else is out there available. Just some random veteran out there that they'll probably just end up cutting.
Okay. A-Rod.
A lot of different ways this can go. Yeah. I think the most ideal situation, and by ideal doesn't necessarily mean the best, because the perfect situation is, and by the way, Broncos fans, root for the madness up into the draft, because we want, I'm telling you, the more of the madness, the better it is for the Broncos, because then we're talking a chance, as slight as it is, a chance to get in a position to land one of those 3 quarterbacks that fall. I know it's not possible. I know it's probably not happening. 90%, if not greater, of a chance that it goes 1, 2, 3 quarterback in some shape or fashion. So with
Jane Daniels to be a Laramie Tunsil like the night before.
Who's got the dirt? Put it out there.
Yeah.
Who's got the picture of one of these guys in a gas mask? No, I'm just kidding.
Or just tell
In
Russell
about
Wilson to one of them. Hey,
3
New
days.
England.
Where does he live?
Or hey, Washington. Here, we'll trade you Russ.
Well,
For, like,
Russell Wilson, we're talking
nothing.
picks 3 through 12. Who is any of those teams maybe interested
Well,
in
no,
Russ?
I mean,
think
just
as many as possible, but
try to
Big
get
deal.
Yeah.
them to sign Russ in free agency or whatever.
I mean,
or
it's
hope
gonna
that
be a
Washington or
damn
New
near
England
minimum deal because the Broncos are paying him the big
Sure.
money. You don't have to pay much. I mean, whatever team, if there's a fit for Russ out there and you can pay him what you're going to pay him, the rest of the roster is going to look pretty damn good because you don't have to pay Russ much because the Broncos are going to take on all of that.
You never
So,
know. Washington may feel like that because they
Yes.
have the weapons.
What I think it's going to be, I think week one, I'm not shocked, but probably relatively surprised if it's not Jarrett Stidham starting week one. I think there's too much smoke there. I think I do buy in. I don't think it was. I really don't believe it was all financial. It may be a majority, but I do think that Sean wanted to see a bit of Stidham in this offense, specifically not Stidham specifically, more of a quarterback of his skill set to be in the offense, not Stidham specifically, if that makes sense. I think he's going to continue that, knowing that's not the long-term goal because I think the second quarterback in that room, I think, is Bo Nix. I think there's too much smoke to the fact that I think Bo Nix is the quarterback for Sean. I have legitimate concern. Let me just say this. I like the idea of JJ McCarthy, but I think where you're going to have to get him, there's too much risk there because of what we haven't seen. I understand that that's just how it was at Michigan. I would have wanted to see more of him. I would have wanted to see one more year specifically to see him kind of take the reins, but you're not going to go back to school when you're projected where he's going. So I understand it. But because of that, and because of what Bo Nix could do in a Sean Payton offense, I think that's the guy. I'm concerned about his translation to the NFL. That Oregon offense, what he needs to learn in terms of being an NFL quarterback really, really frightens me. But the tools are there. The athleticism is there. We've seen a lot out of him that screams Sean Payton. He did not have, based on a lot of reports, did not have the best Senior Bowl practice week. Everyone knows that the practice leading up to the game is most important. It doesn't. I heard mixed reports on really how he fared, what we saw from him overall the entire week. But it's not a guy that you want to take at 12. And so the matter is, it'll be, if you love him, 12's too rich, but if you love him, you got to find a way to get him. So it'll be a tough spot to how they would land Bo Nix. I'm thinking that the most likely situation, especially we're talking about a brain trust of Sean Payton and George Payton. Sean and a guy that would maybe want to move up to get his guy, George being a guy to stockpile the picks. And maybe find a way to do both, move back a bit in a comfortable spot where they see how the draft board falls and they say, we are confident in our ability to get Bo Nix a few picks later, if not 10 picks later, move back, get picks, plus get Bo Nix. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but there we are. So I'm going with Stidham.
Picks and Nix.
Not Jared Statham, which is interesting there from Bo in
I saw
in the
that.
chat there. Jason Statham.
I want Jason Statham.
Yeah, Jason Statham is quarterback. Be interesting, but
Jason Statham is my pick.
I cannot stress enough. You have to get even. I'm telling you, Brandon Miller. I heard you in terms of if you don't love a guy, you don't do it. We need fresh rookie blood of a guy that you at least like in this quarterback room. I cannot have a quarterback room that doesn't have at least one of these top 6 quarterbacks. I want to see a flyer on one of those guys in that position. And I think with the likability in a Sean Payton offense and where you are able to probably get him, I think the perfect fit there as of right now. I think if you can't go in those top 3 guys, I think it's Bo Nix.
All right, Miller.
All right, I'm gonna just to switch things up. I don't know if I would say this is what I'm most confident in, but I'm gonna throw something out there that I wouldn't be surprised if I see this happen. And I'm gonna kind of go off of what A-Rod just said. I think week 1, your starter is gonna be Michael Pratt.
Good training camp.
I think Jared Statham is in the room. He's still the backup, but I think if you like Pratt, obviously there's all the connections to Tulane and Sean Payton. There's also pretty much all the reports I saw out of the Senior Bowl was that he was pretty much the best quarterback there. And I think if you like him enough to maybe take him,
talked with the Broncos
later,
twice too, or whatever.
And he specifically mentioned that he interviewed with us. And then depending on how much stock you put in it, because I know obviously with the regime change, I feel like there's less. They play it closer to the chest, but Albright seems to believe a lot about that connection being very
Legitimate.
strong.
Yeah.
Again, I don't really know. Like, I don't really trust any insiders now anymore because I feel like just with the new ownership and Sean Payton, like no one really says anything. So I don't really know what to believe about that. But I do think it might be Michael Pratt starting week 1. You like him enough to throw him in there and see what he can do, give him some starting reps. And worst case scenario, he's not the guy and you get a higher pick next year. And then I do think Stidham is just the backup because he's comfortable in the offense. Sean trusts him and he knows.
So do you think that they're, out of pure curiosity in this scenario, do you think they're going in with Stidham being the guy and then Pratt just won it over in camp? Like that's just how it played out? Or are they just thinking, hey, or they just go, we're going to go with Pratt, like straight up?
I mean, I don't know if they would ever say it straight up because I feel like they're going to
but what do you think they'll think?
Pratt take it. But if they like him, and obviously no one in this universe thinks Jarrett Stidham is a legitimate franchise caliber starting quarterback. If you like Pratt and you're like, let's just see what he has and put him out there, you're going to say that he won the job, but you were probably going into it thinking, unless he completely falls on his face, he's just going to be our starter.
Yeah. It's not the Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian conversation, but it's to that same, but it's to the same where you were hoping Paxton Lynch was going to win that job, aka, Stidham was going to win that job, but no, he was actually Trevor Siemian who just flat out won that job. By the way,
that's the he falls on his face example.
By the way, the one thing we can say about, a Jarrett Statham or one of those types is that, he's expendable, right? So I think that for me, in terms of the quarterback room, I think that I'm going to use somewhat of the logic of what Anthony mentioned. I think that when Sean Payton came into this, I think we were so hung up on the financials with Jarrett Stidham, and it was a very lengthy contract, right? I mean, it was a very lengthy contract. I think, and we said before, he did not come to the Denver Broncos because of Russell Wilson. He came to the Denver Broncos because of the Denver Broncos, the ownership, the front office, everything that was about that franchise, not named the quarterback, right? Meaning the quarterback was not here. But he did handpick Jarrett Stidham. He didn't handpick Russell Wilson. So I think that the possibility of Jarrett Stidham very likely being the week 1 starter is at this point very, very high. So I think that Jarrett Stidham is your week 1 starter. I'm not going to put a length of how long he'll be the starter, but he will be your week 1 starter. Now, we are going to roll with a twist.
Twist.
We're gonna roll with a twist. I'm gonna shoot my early shot on this, and it's probably gonna change because obviously we're doing this in February. I say they draft Bo Nix. I actually will say that at least for right now, because of all the smoke that we've seen currently with mock drafts and everything, he seems to be the most popular pick at pick 12, right? From what we've seen from the quarterback perspective. So I say they take Bo Nix at 12 in terms of possibly being, in air quotes, the safest of those quarterbacks in terms of, for maybe a pick 12. So they go with the pick 12. They still keep Ben DiNucci on the roster heading into training camp. But there's also another twist and another new quarterback that gets added to the room. They draft a second quarterback in that draft. And it's actually a quarterback's name that we didn't even mention at all. Not Spencer Rattler, not Michael Pratt, not any of the other names we mentioned before. Jordan Travis. I think Jordan Travis is another name possibly that would actually be worth filing away. And if you're going to be possibly getting a guy, maybe letting him sit for, say, almost like if he wants to go the Detroit Lions route, almost exactly to what they did with Hendon Hooker. I'm calling my early shot on this, and I'm saying that they draft Bo Nix, Jordan Travis, and they have Ben DiNucci and Jarrett Stidham on the roster.
Where do you have to get him? Where do you think he's going, Travis?
With his, it's all about medicals. It's all about medicals with him, and that and
where was he projected to go pre-injury?
Well,
can't
I just
recall.
looked them up because right before you said that game, I was actually watching or looking at where they thought he would go. It seems like it'd be 6th round or undrafted.
Yeah.
Now if
Was he a senior?
if
He's
some of the
coming out,
medicals
right?
come out and it looks good, I could see someone taking a shot in the 5th. So that's where I think he's interesting because if he didn't get hurt, I think he would
I
have
think he's
flown
the-
up draft boards. I think he
Yeah.
would have been in the conversation where Bo Nix, Penix. I think he would have been in that conversation. So
The only way he's in
someone-
this room is undrafted. They again, I go back to draft capital.
Yep.
You can't
Yep.
going 2 quarterbacks is ballsy enough, but going 2 quarterbacks with a guy with that many question marks and injury, it's only if he's undrafted. And then again, there's going to be other teams. Well, I mean, the Broncos will be in that running in terms of a team you would want to come to if it's open season to try to be the guy. Broncos are in that conversation, but you can't. Capital is at a premium right now. You can't unless it's undrafted. You can't. You can't do
The
that.
injury thing is way too concerning to take him higher, in my opinion, higher than the 7th. Like it's either 7th round or undrafted for me. It's like in 7th round, I mean like Mr. Irrelevant type of pick.
I would rather be it's 7th. I'd rather be a quarterback than probably any other position. You might as well, if it's going to be a big time flyer, which 7th rounders are.
If he's there, and let's say they have 2 7ths because they trade down at some point, they grab a second 7th, and it's late, and he's there. Why not?
Because it's essentially ensuring he's going to be there versus having to compete with all the other teams for the undrafted status.
Right.
So
What were you gonna say, Matty?
Do you think that they don't call that person Mr. Irrelevant anymore after Brock Purdy?
Mr. Brock Purdy.
It might be time to find maybe the last but not least or something like that. Like, I don't know. Mr. Irrelevant, like that dude is super relevant right now.
If he wins on Sunday, maybe they change it.
Kind of hot take here, but
Purdy
I
relevant.
think he will be Mr. Irrelevant in 5 years. So
Anyway, so that's kind of like my early shoot the shot, if you will, in terms of Jordan Travis. He intrigues me enough to where, like, if it is that 7th round, I'm totally fine, and he's there. And obviously, the way the mock drafts have been, laid out, at least in the early process of February, he's available. Like, he's available in the 7th round, to possibly take him. And we know that even executives themselves, I mean, they've said it before, they do run multiple mock draft scenarios. So maybe they themselves are seeing a possibility where Travis might actually be. And I like the idea, at least on the surface right now, in terms of the 2 quarterback idea and in terms of growing this team long term. I like the idea because then that allows you to find that guy in necessarily a short amount of time, and you still took 2 quarterbacks within that, right? So it's almost like a quarterback battle, and then you almost, if you will, found your guy.
So quarterback every round.
I mean, keep swinging until you don't keep swinging until you don't have one. Yeah. All right. So speaking of Mr. Irrelevant and possibly becoming Mr. Relevant, let's talk about the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl on Sunday. It is the Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers rematch, basically, from a couple Super Bowls ago. There is one stark difference this go around between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers is that this has been, even though the Chiefs made it to the Super Bowl, this has been maybe their one of, if not their weakest year, but yet they still made it to the Super Bowl. But they've got a really good defense. But for the 49ers, really, they made quite the additions to their roster ever since then. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's gone. Brock Purdy's now their quarterback. Deebo Samuel's there. And Chase Young is down there. I believe DeForest Buckner was there, and he's no longer there. You got Eric Armstead. And Randy Gregory, former Denver Bronco, is now there. And they've got maybe a possible Super Bowl MVP candidate on their roster, and local boy Christian McCaffrey, who is quite the addition to that team. So at least on paper, on Super Bowl paper, it looks like the San Francisco 49ers are at least the better team heading into today. or heading into Super Bowl Sunday.
I disagree with that. I think the Chiefs have the better defense. I think they have the better quarterback. I think they have the better head coach. I think they're the better team. They've had the tougher road. San Fran has struggled against two of the worst defenses in the league, and it took them till the second half to wake up. That's not going to work against the Chiefs. Their defense has really struggled. They can't stop the run. I mean, Aaron Jones had 200 yards on him. I think San Fran is a fun story, but to me, and with the Purdy stuff, it just reminds me more so of Linsanity instead of the next Tom Brady. So,
but the difference with Linsanity is this actually has a chance to blow out. I was going to say the only thing that I say about
Linsanity is thunder.
This has a chance to
blow out. I don't think San Fran has. The only chance San Fran has is if Christian McCaffrey has the best game by running back in Super Bowl history, and that's TD. Like he needs a TD type of game. I just actually watched that game yesterday. TD would have had over 200 yards easily if he didn't miss that second quarter. Christian needs that type of game along with three touchdowns minimum for San Fran to win.
I'll go next because Brandon just stole my thunder.
The Chiefs can stop the run. Go ahead.
I also think it's gonna be a blowout. So the 49ers have shown in the last couple games something they have struggled with really since Purdy took over. They're not a great come from behind team. They obviously have done so in this postseason run, but I think it's about to nip them in the butt. I think the Chiefs are going to score first. I think they're going to go up, probably going to go up 10 points. And I think it's going to be a case of the tight cheeks. I like what Brock Purdy does. I really do. I think he's the right quarterback for this team, and I think they'll be in this position again. Hopefully, to not play the Chiefs again. But in this instance, people have started to really catch on to the fact that dare we all say, I mean, the Chiefs have played better defense than the San Francisco 49ers, and there really hasn't been a doubt about it. Spagnuolo's had an unbelievable coaching performance as DC for this squad.
Last couple of years, but really this run, knowing what they've had to do because the offense has sputtered so much with the receiving core that they have, with Mahomes not looking as polished at times. This has been the best coaching job that Spagnuolo's done in his tenure as Chiefs DC. And with all that said, I mean, you then talk about the Chiefs offense starting to find their mojo, even with the receiving core that they have, knowing that they very well could be playing, and these things are factors. So even though it's kind of hard to really put your finger on the tangibleness of this, but Andy Reid, I know the last 24 hours, last 48 hours, that's starting to sound like maybe he won't retire, but I think that possibility still looms. I think the possibility still looms that Travis Kelce also hangs it up to join his brother in retirement. Those are all things that you want to talk about a team that is embraced this underdog role, has embraced the role of being the team that everyone hates with all the things that have happened all season long. I think those are all massive factors. It's not bulletin board material that the Niners did anything wrong. It's that the entire league is just this hatred, this thinking that you're not going to do it, that being the underdogs 3 games now. Were they an underdog in the first game?
They're not the underdogs that people.
I'm just saying the betting underdogs.
The betting underdogs.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. No,
in the right mind,
ironic. Vegas could not have been any more obvious about how this line is in terms of trying to get people to bet a certain way, because there's no chance in hell the Chiefs are an underdog in this game, but they've been the betting underdog now for how many weeks in a row? I forget if they were in week one of the postseason. I know the last 2 games, but
they were favored over Miami.
I was going to say, I thought they would be at home.
Not
but 3
much.
straight weeks. No, not much. Not but much. 3 straight weeks, they're embracing this role. I think they're taking it personally. I think it's gonna be ugly. I think the Chiefs get out to a lead. I think the Niners get it bitten in the butt in terms of having to come from behind. And I think I'm predicting the exact same score we saw 4 years ago. I'm saying 31-20 Chiefs, and I don't even think it's that close.
Well, here's the other thing, and you talked about some of that intangible stuff. How about being the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls in 20 years?
Yep.
I mean, that's a factor in this.
And going through a pretty serious gauntlet. I know Miami sputtered, but we're talking about a team that was vying for the 1 seed for a portion of the year. We're then talking about obviously the big matchup with Buffalo again in Buffalo. And then you go at the number 1 seed in Baltimore. I mean, all these teams had real chances to be the top dog in the AFC, and the Kansas City Chiefs plucked them off one by one. And in 2 of those 3 being the underdog on the road. Yep. This is the most impressive stretch from Mahomes in terms of postseason. Most impressive, like I said, for Spagnuolo and this defense. They're taking it personal. They have everything I think is in their court. They're playing better defense, like I said, than the Niners, which is insane. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a blowout too. I'm all in on the Chiefs. And again, appreciate the greatness of Pat Mahomes, even as a Broncos fan. Even as a Broncos fan.
All right, that's enough chief praise, Anthony. All right, Miller, go.
Yeah, as much as I believe that the Chiefs will probably win this game, I have to, in good conscience, say that it's the 49ers. I have to pick the 49ers in every possible scenario here.
So we're using our brain here, Stoll.
They're betting underdogs, but the thing that just pisses me off is the whole the team leaning into it and Mahomes saying, "Oh, you said we couldn't do it. You're calling us underdogs." No one in their right mind ever said that ever.
All postseason long they have. What are you talking about?
And all regular season, remember?
And all regular season, yeah. Everyone said the Chiefs were dead.
TV, killing the Chiefs. The receivers stink. Mahomes can't.
Yeah, they said the receivers suck, but
and they said that
Mahomes can't do it. I didn't see that.
Mahomes can't do it with that receiving group. Yeah, there is plenty of motivation for the Chiefs. And
this is the time to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl because they're obviously going to improve big time with those offensive weapons. They got to lose now, otherwise Mahomes is easily.
I've seen the people bashing the wide receiver core. I'm one of them, but. I don't know. The whole come on
the national stage. That's been the only person that said or that didn't think that the Chiefs couldn't do it was Nick Wright, and he's a Chiefs fan. We were
an hour and a half in. We couldn't go an hour and a half without.
I don't watch any of those. I don't really watch any of those analysis. So it's possible that I just missed it
upon us sometimes, unfortunately.
But I didn't see it, but I also purposely avoid those. So I mean that makes sense. It just come on. But they're saying it to get a ruse out of people. Like the media that's saying that.
I think they're saying it to motivate themselves. There's stories about Jordan saying the most ridiculous
I know that the team says that.
Oh, that guy beat me in golf 5 years ago.
No. The team. I'm not saying the team. I'm saying if media did do that, I don't think they actually believe it. I think they're doing it as media to stir the pot. I don't think anyone actually believes.
The Chiefs look pretty bad.
I know that they look bad, but I'm not saying I don't think anyone actually believed that they were out.
I think they believe it. They look vulnerable at times. I'm
not saying they didn't believe that. They did believe that. I believe that. But anyway, that's all I'm saying. The main reason, and I didn't even mean to get that much into that.
You're good.
The main reason I would still say the 49ers have a shot, and yes, I do think the Chiefs probably win, but I just can't. I'm gonna go with the 49ers.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
Is because
okay, you can try to convince yourself you don't think the Chiefs are gonna win, but you basically just we all know what you think. But go ahead.
No, I have a legitimate path to the 49ers victory, and the path is
I have a path to $1 million, but
really, you want to share it with me?
No, it's fine.
Is it legitimate? Because mine's legitimate.
Bring it on.
All right. Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in the NFL, and the Chiefs struggle to stop the run, especially recently. Zamir White had 145 yards against them. Josh Allen, I know he's just does this to everyone. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. They seem to kind of have an issue with that. And not only is Christian McCaffrey incredible, just the 49ers run the ball better than pretty much anyone in the NFL. Brock Purdy, I don't think is going to be enough, but I think if you lean on Christian McCaffrey and that's what you traded for him for, that's what you pay him for, that's what you feature him in this offense for, I think the path is there. Do I think the path is easy? Absolutely not. Do I think the path is likely? Not even remotely close, but the path is there.
I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for you to be right. Please.
What about you, Matty? What about you?
Okay, I'll talk. So 49ers are going to win 27-20. They're going to run the ball for over 200 yards on the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is going to be very frustrated and trying in a trail situation. Key turnover at the end of the game. Taylor Swift's going to be crying. Kelsey's going to be crying. And then Brock Purdy's going to be in victory formation wearing the number 13. and he's going to point to Taylor Swift and afterwards saying, "Isn't this your lucky number?" Okay.
I would literally buy a jersey if he did that.
It's gonna be the Tampa Bay like peace sign all over again against the Chiefs.
And peace sign. We don't need hey, Tyreek Hill may have kept him in town. Bye.
So here's the thing: 6 rushing attempts by Baltimore with their running backs in the AFC Championship game, in a game that was within reach for most of the game. Okay. The defense, after the first 2 series, got their act together and shut the Chiefs down. Baltimore's defense did their job. Kansas City has a tendency to get cute, get off schedule, especially against physical teams. Pacheco runs, what they say, runs like he bites people. Isn't that what Pollard said today? Like, truth. I get it. Pacheco is a bad man. But the thing is, the 49ers are going to stick with the run. And it's not just McCaffrey. They got somebody behind him that can run the ball really well too. Shanahan is not going to make the same mistake from before. He's going to get the lead and he's going to run it down the Chiefs' throat, and they won't be able to do anything to stop it. And when they finally bring an extra guy into the box, behind them goes a Kittle or a Samuel or Ayuk down the field one-on-one, and Purdy is going to make them pay like he has teams all season when they sell out to stop the run. Purdy throws the ball on time, on target, in the intermediate part of the field, and those guys in San Francisco can run with the ball after the catch. You can have a great defense, but it's not going to matter in this game. It's not, because the scheme's going to be there. The numbers are going to be in the 49ers' favor. This is the time, and it's going to happen. I think that Mahomes is going to show a lot of frustration on the biggest stage that he hasn't really shown
since the Bills game.
In this spot before.
Hasn't shown?
The Bills,
are you sure?
The Bills could have lost, the Tampa Bay game, like, the numbers didn't look great, but like Mahomes did like damn everything he could and just got hit in the face constantly. I don't put that loss necessarily on him, as painful as that is to say. But the Bills weren't willing to run the ball down their throat. And in the plays that mattered, that second down, their left tackle got pushed right into Allen's face, and the ball came up short. That would have been a touchdown. Who knows what happens after that? Baltimore, 2 turnovers in the red zone, a fumble at the goal line situation. And like, it's just like, there are a lot of things. The Chiefs very well could have not been in this game. Like, they had a path that they had to go through and they won the games, but they didn't dominate that road either. Right. So saying that the 49ers had some deficiencies in their path and showed vulnerabilities and chinks in their armor, like, I think you're being disingenuous if you don't look at the Chiefs and say kind of the same thing. They were very fortunate in teams that Baltimore all year, 24 plus rush attempts with their running backs, and just established their will, and they got out of it, right? They didn't stick to who they were. The 49ers are going to stick to who they are, and the Chiefs aren't going to get them out of it. 27-20, bet the under because it's 47.5. But bet the 49ers because it's dropped down to 1.5. I think that's all the Swifties hitting up Vegas, putting money on the Chiefs. So there you go.
I was just going to say bet on the 49ers because you don't want to be like Brandon Stoll. So I mean, I don't want to be rooting for the Chiefs.
I hope y'all are right. It's just you're not gonna be. I hope you are. I really
we'll see.
Sure.
But see, all this is the driving force. All this is the driving force for me as far as like, I wanted a Super Bowl that was like no rooting interest. You know, I wanted the Rams Bengals type
Ravens
Super Bowl.
Lions, man. Ravens,
like, I wanted like that Rams Bengals type Super Bowl again. Like, I just wanted to just enjoy a nice Super Bowl. But
can't have nice things.
Yeah, can't have nice things anymore.
The Broncos won Super Bowl 50, and
8 years ago today. 8 years ago today,
because they traded their soul, and the prices, you can never just enjoy a Super Bowl.
But anyway, like, so for my thing is like, I have this feeling that I would imagine when you get older, you learn and you grow. And I feel for Kyle Shanahan that he's learned and he's grown from the experiences that he's had in the past. You know, the 28-3, or even being up 10 points. We talked about how they lost 31-20. They were also up 10 points in that Super Bowl and lost. In fact, the play that really was the break off the or what is it, the camel's back, right? The saying, like the water off the camel's back, if you will, breaking. Like it was the Tyreek Hill play, like, right? It was the play that Mahomes literally chucked it downfield to a wide open Tyreek Hill, and he took it in for, I think it was a touchdown at that point. And at that moment, like that's exactly what, you know, happened. Like at that moment, the entire Super Bowl changed at that point. And so there's a lot of things that Shanahan can learn from. And I would imagine because of that, he's going to lean on his two workhorses, or I should say three workhorses, right? He's going to rely on the Elijah Mitchells, but he's also going to rely on Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. I think Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey are going to be real big wild cards with this offense, you know, in terms of like how they utilize him. And I mean wild cards in the sense for the Kansas City Chiefs to schematically stop them, because I mean, you're basically talking about two of almost the exact same type of player. So, you know, I think that for them, they have to be able to find a way to, okay, how can we stop Deebo Samuel? Because like the fact that Willie Gay is at least going to be healthy for them is going to be beneficial for that. I mean, like, you know, because they were using Gay to be like the QB spy. So I think that like if there's, I'm just really curious to see how they stop those two guys. If they can stop them, there's at least a greater chance for them to succeed. Because I really think that there's absolutely this chance where, I mean, the 49ers can beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think they do beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it is, I think it's 27-24. I think it's 27-24. I think it's close. But I think it's going to be a good game. And of course, you know, with it being Pat Mahomes, and as much as we were, you know, clowning Stoll early on in the show, you do have to appreciate the greatness. You do have to appreciate the greatness that is Mahomes, and there's a reason why he's won as many Super Bowls as he has. So he's going to also make this game interesting. He is going to make it chaotic. He's going to make it to the point where it's stressful for every, you know, non-Chiefs fan, if you will. But like he's going to keep it interesting. And I'm sure that maybe the refs will throw a little bit of a nice little wrinkle in there and probably, you know, make it interesting, of course, you know. But no, I think it'll be a good game, though, overall. I think the 49ers do come out on top. And I will say the Super Bowl MVP will be Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, if you think San Fran's going to win,
Has to be.
and you do sports betting, I would bet Christian McCaffrey Super Bowl MVP, because I think that's their only shot.
Yep. So I mean, some last bit of questions, and since we're talking about betting, I guess, how long is the national anthem? Will the coin toss be heads or tails? Will the who will score the first touchdown? Right? Like, what are some of these questions we're missing here? Like, before we're wrapping up the show.
One thing that's kind of interesting is, because I know a couple of you guys have mentioned Elijah Mitchell. His over-under on rush attempts is 1.5 at plus 105. So I would take the over on that. That's plus money on 2 attempts. Are you kidding me? So I will be doing that one. Obviously, I'm taking Chiefs money line. What's interesting is the line is all over the place, everywhere. There are some that have it at -3. There are some where it's a pick 'em. ESPN Bet, I'm looking at right now, they have it at plus 1.5. And it's only plus 102 on the money line, which is interesting. If you're gonna bet Chiefs to win, you should probably do it now, because I think by game time, I think it'll be pretty much split. I think it'll be -120, -110. I think all the money at the last second is gonna come in on the Chiefs. But those are a couple. I think the over is gonna hit, because I think San Fran's offense is good enough to get you like 17. And I think the Chiefs, I don't think San Fran's defense is going to really be able to do much. I think all of their games have gone over as well, right? They were all kind of high scoring games. So I think we're easily in the 50s.
Yeah.
Should be fun. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there's only one bet that I care about. It has nothing to do with the Super Bowl. Just because this guy's on the call, I'm going to do this right here on public. So we have a recording of it. Hey, Brandon, June 27th, you ready to give me $100?
Yeah,
For those that don't know, let me just read a stat line real quick. 5.9. Let me just read a stat line real quick. 5.9 points per game, 2.9 points per game, 2.6 assists per game, 37% field goal. 5 or so years ago, I bet this gentleman right here that Bronny James would not be a first-round pick in the NBA draft, and I'm going to be $100 richer on June 27th.
Wait, what is the bet? Is it first round or is it lottery?
Oh, we can go lottery. If that's what you remember.
Well, I posted on Facebook, so we got to go back and check because I'm pretty sure I said lottery, which is not looking great. So
no, it's not.
I'll be honest here. I think he should stay. I don't think he should go to the NBA yet. I think he should stay another year. Just
I'm searching right now.
I will say this.
Jay, I wonder why.
I will say this: if
he's not a first
LeBron has a player option next year, and he's probably gonna exercise his option to get out, right? So he's not going to just play that last year in La La Land unless they were to draft Bronny. That's like his last thing that he's holding on for is just to play 1 year with his son. So some team potentially in the first round might say, you know what, we'll take a chance on Bronny in the first round because most guys at pick like 21 don't stick around on a roster beyond like 3 years anyway. And they'll do that with a hope that they can bring in LeBron James and have one fun season. So there may be more than meets the eye there. You may transform yourself into a nice little payday there in June. We'll see. A lot depends on what happens with his dad. It's more his dad than him.
It's on LeBron because if LeBron gets to a point where he's like, all right, I don't care as much about winning a championship, he might just stay in LA. Mm-hmm. He might just do the whole Kobe thing where I'm just gonna chill out in LA, and but if he's serious about winning, then I think he does leave. But like
I can't find this post anywhere.
Yeah, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. But if let's say Utah is like, oh, we're gonna draft Bronny. I don't think LeBron's gonna go to Utah.
I think he will. I think he will.
I think he would do that in like a few years. But LeBron he's averaging 25, 7, and 7. Like he's a legitimate top 15 player in the league at 40 years old. So I think his mentality is still trying to win. So I don't think he could go play with Bronny in a few years. Even if Bronny is a second round pick and he's playing in the G League, at some point LeBron will go to a team, they will grab Bronny off the G League and they can do a year. But I don't think it'll be next year. I think that's going to be I think it's more likely that LeBron plays with Bronny when Bryce is in the NBA instead of them playing together next year.
Well, I hope he loses bet because otherwise we can have you looking like that. We can have you looking like that again if you want to.
Oh, there's the blast for the past.
Sorry, I'm totally off topic, but
I just turned 39 last Saturday, and like my whole body hurts, and like I'm tired all the time. And I look at LeBron James, and that dude just looks like it's ridiculous. Like he's just like going through the he's great. He's great, but he looks like he's going through the motions here just to get to next year to play with his son and then call it a quits. Like
I think he still wants to win.
Me is what I feel like.
I think he still wants
Brandon,
to win.
You were right.
Yeah,
I win the bet. I win the bet. It's specifically So when does lottery stop?
There's no shot.
Lottery is like 14.
Is it 14 or 15? I can't remember.
Can you guys read that? Hold on. Let me turn off my.
There are 8 teams that make the playoffs in each conference. That's 16 out of 30. That makes 14 in the lottery.
You guys read that? There you go.
Yep. Oh well, I said top 15 pick. So
found
one out of the lottery.
So one
Well,
out of the
So
lottery,
top
yeah.
half of the first round.
You know what's funny though is on that right there it says Steven said he'd be top 10.
He did. It did indeed.
So
Anyway, that's the betting that I care about. I usually don't bet on sports in general. Like I said, win-win bet 4 years ago. I bet some money on the Chiefs because that way, hey, either the Chiefs win and that sucks, but I win money, or they lose and I just paid for the Chiefs to lose the Super Bowl. That's the only sports
need
thing I
to
do other
go-
than that bet right there.
we need to go back to B-dubs for the NBA draft and have some fun with that one.
As long as you have my cash, homie.
If he goes to the draft though, I think there's a chance
Right.
he stays.
So I was gonna say, like, if we're talking about this whole bet situation or possibly this, I was actually thinking about going to maybe go the other route, which was, I'm sure Brandon remember this, and Anthony, I'm sure you remember this, with, Brandon actually doing push-ups in the studio. Like, what I was thinking is, like, we could actually do something. Maybe we bring both of you guys back, and Brandon actually does push-ups on the street
While smashing a laptop.
while smashing a laptop. Yeah,
Okay, what's the laptop story? I don't know the laptop story.
It was a class project. It was. I
to
had to
destroy a
smash-
laptop?
I destroyed a laptop.
Yeah.
Just demolished it. Just destroyed it.
Damn, I want to do that class project.
It was really fun. It
The-
was part of
the
it was-
reactions
it was
he
part of a
got-
creative video.
the reactions he got though, it wasn't it wasn't in the video though, but the reactions he got.
People thought I was nuts.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
people
it was out in the open on our college campus. People thought I was Looney Tunes.
Were you there, Brandon? Were you
worth
there?
it.
Like,
No, I wasn't. I was probably out doing something stupid. I can't say I was in class because that's not true.
I'll give the people. I'll give
or you were
the,
in a different, you were in a
give the
different
people
class.
what they want here. Here we go.
Yeah.
There you go. Just God, I got to turn off the blur again. Hold, please.
Well, you can also check it out. You can also check it out over at the Manely Broncos Twitter account because that's where we shared it. But yeah, that's basically it. Where it was a slow-mo video of him just basically going to town on a Dell laptop.
That was fun.
See, I would have
Yeah.
thought it was just because it was a Dell laptop and it sucked and it didn't work for you.
Well, you know.
But anyway, this was absolutely fun. Again, this is a reunion, if you will. Anthony and Brandon Stoll and I go way back, all the way to the KMET Sports Show days on campus, actually as a part of MyMet Media. It was an absolute blast. We actually did a show called the KMET Sports Show. And then Brandon and I did
Stampede.
a Stampede show. I forget what it was. Yeah, it was a Stampede show.
NFL Stampede. I can't
NFL
Broncos-
Stampede, yeah, NFL Stampede.
Oh.
So yeah, we go way back. And of course, we have the Manely Broncos podcast right here with Brandon Miller and of course Matty Mulls chopping it up with us. It was a great pod. It was a fun pod. We got a chance to talk very lengthy about the quarterback position. And I was joking with Brandon earlier. There's like the over/under on terms of like how much we'll be talking about the quarterback position, just in terms of in the next few months, what maybe like 30 to 50 times, like over the course of
Over.
Yeah,
You got to bump those numbers up. Those are rookie
Over.
numbers.
yeah, it's gonna be
Easiest
over.
bet.
Yeah. So anyway, make sure you follow the crew. Make sure you follow the crew. You can do Brandon at Brandon Stoll over there on Twitter. Which, by the way, proceed with caution now that you guys know that he's rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, Anthony
Seriously, I might
Rodriguez.
unfollow you.
Right, it's true. Or block you. Or
Tread,
block you.
tread lightly.
Yeah. Also, you can follow the podcast that he does too. He and Stephen Priest, another longtime friend for us, that they do Behind the Glass. You can check out their podcast. And Anthony, well, he is the voice or one of the voices down there at KOA. He's an executive producer over at KOA. You can follow him at Anthony Ron 33, and he chose number 33 for Larry Walker.
Patrick
also-
Waugh, you. I almost went a whole pod without swearing. You almost had me drop a one. You know what that 33 is? Ain't no Larry Walker. I love Larry. It's Patrick Waugh. Damn it, get it together.
You can also follow him on Instagram. You see him right there at Life of A-Rod. Brandon Miller at Brandon Miller PO. Matty Mulls at Matty Mulls Pod, where he is also doing basketball content. So Stoll, if you're a basketball fan, and I should say basketball fan, now it's a Thunder podcast, but if you're a basketball fan, you should go check out Matty's podcast that he does, which is Topic Thunder, by the way, which is like one of the most
Nice.
which is like
That's
it's
Fire
like
name.
yeah, it's one of the
Fire.
best names. It's one of the best names too for like a podcast.
It's the top
Enjoy that
three
first
podcast
round
names I've ever
exit.
heard.
Great movie too.
Yeah.
crazy.
What was that about a first round exit, Brandon? What was that?
Oh,
Hey man, leave the up and
careful.
coming team that's gonna lose to the Nuggets in like the second round. Leave them alone, all right? God.
Oh, they
just leave
won't
them
get
alone.
to the Nuggets, but
Let
No,
them they're up and coming. Just let them
No, they-
ride.
It looks
let
like he's trying
I
to
love-
figure
I
out where you
love
live.
then let them
I love
falter.
I love
They got Shea. Just
they're
be
they're
patient.
young. You know, they're young.
Yeah, they're young. They
That's
need
it.
experience. They need a big old fat L in the first or second round.
That's the team in 3-4 years. But
Not yet.
no, enjoy the
Oh.
regular season.
Matty's out here recreating the the scene
People
from
to
The
kill
Office.
list.
Yeah, or the
And
The Office.
Yeah, the temp is keeping his list.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for hopping on with us and chiming in the chat. We had dozens of comments into the chat, so thank you guys so much for hopping in with us. Make sure you follow the Manly Broncos Twitter account at Manly Broncos, myself at Cameron Parker PO. It was a great show. We will be back next Wednesday and hopefully a 49ers Super Bowl victory.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.